Okay, I'm going to do a quickie tutorial on using OnCollisionEnter in Unity, and it'll give you a little bit of information about how functions work and how Unity calls things, calls functions, and a tiny little bit of a hint about object-oriented programming. So let's get started. Very simply, we just have a brand new, fresh spanking project here that I called Simple Collision with nothing added to it yet. I'm going to go to Game Object and add a couple of objects. Game Object 3D Object Cube and Game Object 3D Object Sphere. Now, they're right on top of one another, right in the same spot. I'm going to lift the sphere up above the cube using the y-axis arrow pointer thing. And we're going to press play just to see what it does so far. Absolutely nothing. They just stay there because no physics has been added to the sphere or the cube. So I'm going to add some physics to the sphere. If I add it to the cube too, they'll both just fall and they'll never hit one another. So I'm just going to add it to the sphere. Add component, physics, rigid body. You do that down here in the add component place. You have to have the sphere selected to give it a rigid body. And you see that the cube still doesn't have a rigid body over here in the inspector, like the sphere does. Like these, not the light, the sphere. The sphere has a rigid body, and oh, look at that. Use gravity is turned on. Let's see what happens. Oh, it falls down. Yay. Now, what I want to have happen is I want to put a little script on the cube so when it gets hit by a sphere, something prints out ouch out into the console down here. I want a little word ouch to happen when this sphere falls on it. So I'm going to click on the cube, add component, add a script to the cube that says, I'm going to make a silly name for this script that says, so I got hit. Now I'll without the punctuation, say, and I'm going to click create an ad. Now we're going to go edit that script and look at it. This is sort of a default script that Unity always gives you, and it's just sort of a hint about what to kind of do. Unity, if there's a script in this object, it'll do all the stuff you want it to do at the start before the game plays. It'll do a bunch of stuff. Then it'll do a bunch of stuff. If you put anything in here, it'll do a bunch of stuff every frame, whatever you put in here. Little commands, logic, whatever you want. We're only wanting something to happen when this cube gets hit, so I'm going to get rid of all of those. And I'm going to say void on collision enter. And this is me creating a function, so I have to say the return value, which is void, which is we're not sending any information back to the Unity engine that called this function, so that's why we're saying void there. And we also have to give some space for Unity to send us the place where the two objects hit, and that's called a collision. So saying collision there tells you the size of the thing that Unity is sending you, a collision, and you also need to have a box that first you have to tell the computer what size box it needs, then you have to give that box a name. My name for it will be my collision. Now I'm not going to use this my collision in this very oversimplified example. But I still have to put that there because if the function call and the function itself don't match, the compiler sends an error. Though I don't need these right now, they're handy to have around to add on to things later to, like put a special effect at the place where the two things hit. But I'm not going to use that right now. For now, I'm just going to have it put something into the console window, and I happen to know you just say debug.log, give it parentheses and quotes, and a semicolon, and then you can just type anything you want in here. I'm going to say ouch. That hurt. And stuff like that. Okay, I believe that should be everything we need to do with this code. It's a very short piece of code where you only had to write this many lines of code, and you had to delete a little bit of code too. Debug log, why does that work here? Well, in the Unity engine or in the system collections, I'm not sure which, probably a little bit of both, there is some other function. So this is the function we made. It's a class, actually. This is the class thing we made. Somewhere in this engine over here, this debug script or class has already been made, and inside it is a function called log, just like this function here is called OnCollisionEnter, a function called log that does stuff. It prints stuff to the console. Just to sort of give you an idea. So inside the debug class is a log function. And that log function takes this parameter, this data, to put into it. And it'll print it. It does a bunch of stuff that makes it so it can print to the console. So let's see how that works. I'm going to save this, switch back to Unity, and press play. There it is. Ouch, that hurt. Ouch, that hurt. It shows it in 2 places, actually. And that's the end of the tutorial. I hope it helped you understand a little bit about the workings of Unity as well as how to do an OnCollisionEnter.